when I hear the word risk, a lot of people like they hear risk, and I think some people think, oh, okay, I got to minimize that risk. And I hear risk and I love it because when I hear risk, I'm like, okay, so there's big risk. That means there's big reward. So I literally I hear risk is like code word for like massive reward. And so I'm like all in on risk. Like as long as I can wrap my head around how to manage the risk, like I want to go do it.
Everybody, Spear and Clover podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jason Skisick, joined today with Justin Singer. Justin owns Mechanix Gym in Houston, Texas, and he's an all-around really cool guy. I'm super excited to have you on. I think what you guys are doing out there is super cool, and I can't wait to hear more about it. How you doing, Justin?
Man, I'm doing great. I actually just got done with a cold plunge swim. It's like 50 degrees in the water, and I've been like building that habit in the afternoon. Instead of doing coffee, I just kind of jumped in the pool for a little bit. So I'm feeling super refreshed and energized. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. And I wish I was down there in Texas with you, but for me, it's coffee today. We're recording this. It's like 20 degrees outside my door, and Justin just told me it's 65 and he's jumping in the cold plunge. So super cool. So Justin, tell me a little bit about what it is that you guys are doing, because I think your gym is pretty unique. When I highlight fitness businesses, I like to choose ones that are a little bit different than the ones that you see around every corner. And yours is no different than that. Can you tell us a little bit more about what it is you guys do at Mechanix?
Yeah. So Mechanix Gym, we focus on strength, recovery, mobility, breath work, try to basically pull together all the components that are the pillars of performance and fitness. I think we're a little different than other folks out there because we're not just offering a program around strength training or just doing a HIIT training class, but we've got these specific modalities that all tie together and basically create incredible performance in the gym and outside of the gym. So strength through bodyweight training, strength through calisthenics, mobility classes. We do a lot of stuff in the pool, underwater with weights, a lot of stuff with breath work on land, and a lot of stuff with recovery, especially around the saunas and the ice baths. So that's fairly unique for us in Houston and Texas. So we get a lot of people that are interested in that kind of stuff and built this really cool community of people that are passionate about their health and passionate about just living a life of greatness.
Yeah. And I think that what you're doing, especially in the realm of a lot of that is different, right? I'm previously a CrossFit guy. I still own CrossFit Gym, right? And I love CrossFit and the methodology. For most of us, that's like, man, I don't know if I like being that uncomfortable. And you guys take it to that next level. You're like, oh yeah, well, guess what? We're going to jump in a freezing cold bath and we're going to do drills on breath work. And then we're going to hop in the sauna and see if we can tolerate it. And when I have been able to string that together for limited amounts of time, we had Robin Lalonde on, I don't know the order that these will come out, but she also does the cold baths and stuff. It's intolerable for the first time you do it, but man, does it help. And if you get into the rhythm, it's been great. What was your initial kind of introduction to that stuff?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. There's a pretty well-known surfer, Laird Hamilton, and I enjoy surfing, and he's a pretty big name in surfing and in fitness, and he's married to Gabby Reese, and she's a pretty big name in fitness. And anyway, I was down in Costa Rica with a buddy of mine, and he's a big Laird fan too, and he was like, hey, have you heard of this new thing Laird's doing with XPT? And they're going to have this experience at his house out in Malibu for a few days. And he kind of like laughed a little bit, like, we should sign up for it.
Yeah.
And, it had a fairly significant price tag on it. So he was kind of joking a little bit. And I was in that mode of like, hey, if you show me a new experience that looks cool, like I'm in. So anyway, I went out there and, he's got this training methodology that implements a lot of the things that we do now. It was me going out there and seeing that I was training with guys 20 years older than me. And these guys were like crushing me, man. I mean, they were crushing me in the water and they were crushing me on land. And I came to the experience pretty fit. So I was like, something these guys are doing like works. And so that's when I started diving into a lot of this. And ultimately that inspired me to bring a lot of those XP and training principles and implement a lot of them at Mechanix Gym.
Yeah, that's so interesting. What year was it that you went and worked with Laird?
I think that was 2016. It's about 5-6 years ago.
I was in a mastermind with Brian McKenzie, who used to run CrossFit Endurance. And Brian was involved with Gabby and Laird. And at the time, he led us in Wim Hof breathing, which is very much tied to this. if you're listening to this and you don't know who Wim Hof is, check him out, check Laird out, check Brian out, all those people just at the cutting edge of what's possible. But Wim Hof is the person, they call him the Iceman. He's the one that can hold his breath and swim under the ice and has done all sorts of wonderful stuff. But yeah, that was when I was exposed to the Wim Hof breathing stuff. When you talk about breath work, what do is that Wim Hof type style of breathing? Is that what you guys are doing? Are there, what got you into the breath work stuff?
Yeah, I got into breath work, honestly, because Laird was so passionate about it.
Yeah.
I went down there thinking, these breath work guys are kind of a little woo woo, I thought sort of thinking crystals and magic. And it really wasn't, something that I gravitated to until I heard him say, Laird says, look, if I had to distill everything down to just one thing, like I would cut everything else out and just do breath work. Because with really good breath work, you just get so much mentally and physically, you can get a workout out of it. So fast forward all that, what we do with breath work and Mechanix, what I do myself is we do a lot of things around just the proper mechanics of breathing and then going through different breathing patterns, similar to what Wim does. And all of this is with the goal of one, just sort of the experience of the breath, the mental benefits, the physical benefits, training the respiratory system, training the mental system. It's just this like practice that just keeps on giving. It's like, if you think about it, we're breathing tens of thousands of times a day. And so if we can optimize that like just a little bit, it just has the biggest ability to move the meter in everything that we do. And so that's what, when we implementing breathwork and Mechanix, we're just trying to help people tune up. And even if they can just get a couple % better in that, there's massive impact in their workouts and their mental performance and their overall health.
Yeah. And, just on that note, is there an online resource you can recommend for somebody listening to this? Maybe they're not in Houston, or is there somebody you'd recommend where you can just right now? I know for me, the Apple Watch, when I got my Apple Watch, I was like, oh yeah, I remember breath work. And, for a little while that got me back into it. But is there any resources you'd recommend for somebody that's just listening at home?
Oh man, there's a bunch. I mean, honestly, Wim's got great resources. XPT just released their app. So iPhone, Android. Brian McKenzie, he started up Shift now. Actually was at his program a couple months ago. He's got great resources. My buddy Taylor Somerville, who went through XPT training with, he's just released a bunch of stuff. So those are 4 good ones right there. Wim, XPT, Brian McKenzie, and Shift, and Taylor Somerville.
Yeah. And, kind of bringing this to the entrepreneurial side, you've already mentioned it tacitly, and that is that you invest in knowledge from folks outside yourself as an entrepreneur, as a fitness practitioner, as, a biohacker, whatever you want to call it. So talk to me a little bit about, that's how we know each other, right?
Yep.
Talk a little bit about how that's played a role in your life as an entrepreneur.
So many examples of that.
Yeah, sure.
One of the first businesses that I started was in technology services. I had a technology services company, and it was all like very thin financially in the beginning. Like I was sort of, mapping it out. Like, okay, if I can just get a job and make this much, I can cover my expenses for like the next 2 weeks, and then I got to get one more job. So I was thinking very incrementally like that. And there's a health club here in Houston it's quite expensive. And for me, it was like, I was literally thinking like, okay, I'm going to trim my budget here. I'm going to try to drive a little bit less, but I've got to go to this place because if I go, I'm going to meet some interesting people. Well, I think I put like $10,000 into that membership the first year. And I was looking back at it, and I think I made like 100x on that investment. But when I did it, it was like this total gut check of like, should I do this? Because I'm basically just paying a bunch of money to go to a health club. But I was going and getting a chance to build these relationships with people and ended up some benefit. So that would be an example. You and I met through FBU, and, FBU was when I was trying to decide whether to invest in that or not. I was like, these guys are talking about some things that I've heard about in some other places, and some of those places don't have quite the same price tag on it. Should I put money into it? And when I did, I connected with guys like Billy Jones, who I know you're talking to him on the podcast. Sure. So it may even come out. And then those relationships have just been incredible and like created tremendous value in addition to like a great friendship. So that was really cool. The XPT deal, I think I put $10,000 into that experience between the cost of going out there and all this different stuff. And I was thinking to myself, I bet if I put the money into this, I'm not only gonna have a great time, but I'm gonna meet some like killer people.
Yep.
And the people that I met there ended up introducing me into certain things that ended up paying dividends like so many times over. So it was like this amazing experience. And then I met these people and just like amazing things happen. And I can directly tie value to investment that's like way more than that. So I mean, those are just a few examples, but literally I have never regretted like putting money into like courses, experiences, being around the right people. And I kind of look at, honestly, a lot of times, like when the price tag's big, it means that the people that are like really serious are going there. So it's almost like the price tag being higher is almost like an indication of like, okay, you're going to be around some like tremendous value that's going to come out of there in some way or form or fashion.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I would say there's kind of like, for starters, I completely mirror what you said. By the way, I don't have like a mastermind. This isn't a commercial, but like I would completely mirror what you said. I've been a member of masterminds for years. The first one was actually with Brian McKenzie, like you're talking about. We were in the barbell mastermind together. I was in Gym Launch early and very actively and loved that experience. And then I had, obviously FitBiz University was that as well. And again, we probably will one day, I certainly will be involved in something like that. I believe very strongly in it. I think the three things you need, right, is like you need to have somebody that can confirm to you like, hey, this was great. We just did it. It's always good to have a good referral, right? But, the price, I've told people before kind of jokingly, like, if you want to do better, I could just charge you more. Because what I've seen is folks get more bought in. The folks that are involved, you have their attention. The people that you end up developing relationships with, I have personally watched, other people, but also myself build relationships, partners, connections, networks, all those types of things from networks or from organizations like this. And so, whether it's a course or a mastermind of your peers or something like EO, who we've had a lot of guests on this show that are a part of EO. That's a nonprofit that's global. All of those things have been just unbelievably helpful for myself and for other people as well. Well, we did skip a step. Tell me about when did you know you were going to be an entrepreneur? Was it always something you thought you were going to be, or did you just kind of walk into it? So give us your origin story as an entrepreneur.
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I think I had it sort of, I don't want to say drummed into me, but it was when I was young, my parents were always like, building a business is a great thing to do and you should be thinking about it. So it was always sort of back here. I went to school and I actually got my degree in computer science. So people always laugh when they say I'm running a gym. They say, what'd you do in school? I said, well, computer science. I finished up school and I was like, I don't know what business I want to start. So I ended up going and working as a software developer and doing that for a few years. And I'm like sitting in a cubicle and, working on writing software code. And I just had this like realization that this is just not what I want to do. And as soon as I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do for like the next 10, 15 years, I was like, okay, I don't want to do it anymore. Like right now, I got to make that change like right now. So literally like sitting in there one day I was 23 years old. I was like, I got to stop working in a cube and go do something else. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just started up doing an IT services company because it was close to what I understood. And, fast forward almost 20 years. And, now I'm running a couple gyms and I'm doing a lot of work in the real estate space and thinking about some other ideas sort of down the road. So it's been a real interesting entrepreneurial journey that just started from like, hey, let me just take this first step and go and do something that I'm really passionate about. I've always, when I hear the word risk, a lot of people like they hear risk and I think some people think, oh, okay, I got to minimize that risk. And I hear risk and I love it because when I hear risk, I'm like, okay, so there's big risk. That means there's big reward. So I literally I hear risk as like code word for like massive reward. And so I'm like all in on risk. Like as long as I can wrap my head around how to manage the risk, like I want to go do it. So
yeah, that's interesting. First of all, that's an unbelievable story. I wasn't that well versed with it and I have a couple questions about it, but just to address that risk thing, it's weird, right? Because you can have risk without reward, but I get what you're saying. I'm very much, I wouldn't say I have a large risk appetite, but I'm very much comfortable with like finding ways to mitigate risk and not turning away just because there's risk, right? To me, it's not something, I think there's some folks, and this doesn't mean you can't be a great entrepreneur, it doesn't mean anything, but there's some folks you meet where the risk itself seems like it's a weight, it's a burden that somebody carries. Oh my God, I got 14 days and that thing becomes due, or, this is the risk that's hanging in the air. Once I've agreed to take on a risk, I'm only thinking personally about overcoming it and getting to the result, right?
Yep.
And the risk doesn't hang around my neck. So I think that's just a temperament thing. Also, I think it's really interesting that you went from computer sciences into doing your own thing. I think maybe at first blush, that doesn't seem like a natural thing, but, you know, very much like engineering or very much any of those very technical BS type degrees, you know, science, not bullshit. You know, it feels like once you learn how to do it, well, you can hang a shingling and you can make a business for yourself. At what point did you determine that you wanted to get into fitness? How did that story come about?
Oh yeah, that's a good question too.
Yeah.
I want to say one other thing about risk because I think it's sort of an important point, and I want to take that question. So
yeah,
I just view risk as like when I see risk, I view it as like a bulb or a flag, like an attractor. But then to your point, okay, how do you mitigate the risk? Because I don't want to be like coin flip on like whether I succeed or not. I want like guarantee. But when I see that flag, it's like, okay, that's a flag that's going to like attract to great opportunity, and other people are repelled away. So I like that. It's like great rewards, less competition. Let me just figure out how to manage that risk. And then once I got that managed, then like go all in on it. And so
that's a great point. And you're right that there are so many folks that don't pick up the challenge because of that risk. That's an interesting point. I like that.
Yeah. So the fitness, that situation, that's very unexpected. If you'd asked me 20 years ago if I was ever going to be in the fitness business, I mean, I was literally like, I almost want to just go tell all the people that I went to high school with that I'm running a gym now, because I was kind of like the math science computer guy with the glasses and, you know, literally sort of fit the prototype of the math nerd. And I think me running a gym is like highly improbable. But the way I got there, I was in the IT services and consulting space for almost 10 years. And it's a really draining business. It's very rewarding, but it's very draining. And so I was taking like a week or two off, and I was on the beach, literally. Sounds kind of corny. I was on the beach, literally. So I had like total clarity, like the sun's beating down. Like I can literally visualize it. And I was like, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. Like I like this beach spot, and I hate like how I was feeling right before I came there. And it was like that moment when I was like, okay, I got to do something different. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew that like I wasn't going to wait 10 years to do it. I was going to like put the ball in motion at that moment. So it took a couple of years to make everything happen. I ended up selling the business to another consulting firm, and I'm looking to figure out like, what do I want to do next? And I'm like waiting to be inspired. I'm thinking that I'm going to get inspired to like cure cancer or like solve world hunger, or like I'm waiting for the tap on the shoulder to like change the world. And I'm not getting that tap. So I'm just sitting here sort of waiting and antsy. And I ended up getting into real estate as sort of just a stopgap. Like I was just going to do that for a little bit while I waited for that tap of like how I was going to change the world. Ended up really falling in love with buying old properties and rehabbing them and renting them out. And so I'm still doing that today, 10 years later. But what ended up happening, one of my parameters for picking that business was having more control over my time. And so once I have more control over my time, then I have more time for fitness, which had kind of gone by the wayside because of work. And so I discovered calisthenics. And then I was looking for a place like a gym I could go and train at in Houston. And there was no gyms. Like I literally was ready to just go like join a gym somewhere and just be a member. Like that's all I wanted to do, but it didn't exist. And so I was like, well, how hard can it really be to open up and run a gym, right? You just get a trainer, you get a couple clients, and it just sort of goes on autopilot, right? That was how stupid I was about the whole business when I was starting it out. But that's how I got into it. And then I think it's one of the most rewarding businesses you can be in, you know, because my experience with it has been that the people I work with, like they love to be there. Like they're super excited about it. So I'm working with people that love what they want to do, which most people, I don't think they can say that. And then we're helping clients, and we call them athletes in our gym. So we're helping athletes and we're changing their lives. Like we can literally see it in the course of like a few weeks or a few months. Well, that feels amazing. And then the people that come and want to jump in an ice bath and a sauna and like do breath work, that's a pretty kind of cool kind of person that I tend to really like that kind of person. Like that's a person I want to be like lifelong friends with. So I've got this business that's just like bringing people to me that I want to be friends with. Like how cool is that? I mean, a lot of people can't say that in their business either. So all of a sudden, like accidentally, I end up finding out that maybe this is like that. This is the tap that I was waiting for like 5 years ago. And I just sort of found it by just keeping in motion and doing stuff. And then there it is. It happened.
That's so amazing. I love that story, the way you put it that way, because it makes sense to me, right? But I think for a lot of folks listening to this at home, there's a reason why, about half of these shows are going to be fitness professionals. I mean, obviously, that's who I've worked with in the past, but I believe very strongly that business is a special one, because we're, a lot of respect to doctors, a lot of respect to people that treat bodies when they're broken, right? And PTs and chiros and things like that as well. But gyms, you have this combination of human performance. You can help people feel better. You can help people look better. You can help people lose weight, which is probably like the number one reason you meet somebody and like the last reason why they end up staying, right? But also, just you tell me one area of your life that isn't improved if you're in good shape, if you're eating healthy, if you have more energy, if your body's capable of more, if your mind is clearer, if your hormones are in balance, right? All this stuff that you're helping people to do. And we quantify it as like, oh, he owns a gym. It's
right,
like, well,
right.
Yeah, fuck yeah. But then the other stuff, the elements of the business, first of all, if you don't own a gym and you're listening to this, Justin's right. Owning a gym is not as simple as an investment that you just show up at once in a while. It's very tough. And I actually want to hear you compare the two businesses you've owned in a minute here. But it's just so great to have people that work for. I mean, one of the things that I've always told people is, as a gym owner, you need to be a master at employing and managing a team of people who are they have to be super passionate about what they do. But a lot of times you're not even paying their rent. A lot of times they have a different job, or even if they are full-time, these are not, $100,000 employees for most gym owners. There are certainly some out there that do. So if you could, what was it like, the different businesses that you've run? You have real estate, you have the fitness business, and you have the tech consulting company. What did you find to be the biggest differences between them? Are there things that you liked about, one or the other that you haven't been able to create in others? What's your experience been having owned different businesses in different industries?
That's a good question. I haven't really sat down recently and like really compared and contrasted it.
Yeah.
They've all been rewarding. So they've all, like, I don't regret any of them. What was really cool with the technology services business, the IT services consulting business, was we were working with cutting edge technology and doing really cool stuff. And I really liked that. One of the attributes that I didn't love was we were building things that were like really intangible. So when I'm done, I finished my project, like everything that I built for you kind of exists in the ether somewhere.
Yeah.
And so when I pivoted, I really wanted something where I could be like, hey, look, I built that right over there. Check it out. There it is.
Yeah.
And that was literally, one of the biggest drivers of getting into real estate. And I love that aspect of real estate. It's that I can literally go and take a piece of property and I can implement a vision with it. And I can show you. And it's real easy. Like, here's the before, here's the after, here's how it all happened. Some of it's pretty high stakes problem solving. You got a lot of resources on the line and you got to make a lot of decisions that are pretty important. That doesn't really exist in the same way in the gym business. You're making really important decisions, but the stakes in each case, the cost of a membership is a lot less than the cost of a building or doing some major repair to it. I think fitness for me has been just really personally rewarding, maybe more so than anything else that I've done, just because of what you and I were talking about. You hit the nail on the head when you talk about how much of a change you can make in someone's life. And that's really cool. And I think you can do that in lots of different businesses. But I think the thing which is interesting is that we as individuals are all going to connect with a certain kind of business in a certain kind of way. So for you and I, I'm making the assumption that this is also true for you, but I'm thinking you probably got a ton of personal satisfaction out of seeing all the results that your gym has generated with your athletes and probably with your staff too. And so that I've seen in fitness more than anything else. Some people get that in like a window business. I think it's the coolest thing in the world to put windows in, and like they go and look at new windows and they get that same feeling. And it's like, okay, you're meant to be in windows. I would hate that. I love fitness. The fitness, scratches my back on that and makes me feel like I'm really making, kind of a little dent in the universe, to use Steve Jobs terminology.
Yeah. That's a really good thought you just had there. And what I would say is I have met on this show and otherwise, I've met people who just love installing windows, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've met
Yep.
people who love cleaning. Like I've met people who, I had one guy, he cleaned the gym for us and he was like, I love watching the dirt disappear. It was kind of creepy. It's like, I love watching the dirt disappear into the vacuum. And I was like, okay, man, shout out to Mike. He's like a brother. But either way, there are those folks out there. I think the hit rate though is like almost every, especially like non-franchise, but almost every gym owner that I meet is on a mission to change the world through the 150 people in front of them or whatever it may be. And I think you do have more density, a population density of more people that are trying to change the world. I think in my experience, there are not as many industries like that. Hopefully doctors, right? If you love the law, you go into law. But, I think it's been satisfying to, one of the things that I think and one of the reasons why I started this show is every time I get on the phone with a gym owner, we find common ground every time. And if we don't, in the very, very rare times that it has been a challenge, it's usually someone who's like, I do this. I bought a blanks franchise. I just want it to work. Fix it. Own this result. I would be like, I don't want anything to do with that, Yep. But more often than not, I ran into people that are super passionate about helping people. I mean, I've lost track. I think the last I heard, we had like 5 human beings that exist because their parents met at our gym. We've had multiple weddings. We've had, so many, there's been businesses that have popped out of it. There's been, all sorts of stuff that has come out of that building or those buildings that we've had. So where does this go for you now? Is there thoughts to combine the technology or the real estate and the fitness? Is there anything like that? If you're comfortable, I don't know, maybe there's something on the horizon we can't talk about, but where does this go for you now?
So Mechanix, Mekanix vision.com, mechanicsvision.com. I kind of laid out my 4-year plan with Mechanix a couple of years ago. Uh-huh. So anyone wants to really deep dive into it, you can go to mechanicsvision.com. But so actually right now, I've got the real estate and fitness businesses combined in certain areas. So one thing I'm really passionate about is creating unique physical spaces for people to be able to come together. Mm-hmm. I think every single one of us that has a gym, however we do it, whether we're training people in our backyard or a park or a small box or a large box or whatever, like you've created some kind of a space that allows people to physically come and interact and have all that serendipitous interaction. And it's like, okay, well, how do you take that experience and then make it, keep elevating it? Like, how do we say 1% better every day, which is 37 times better in a year at Mechanix? And how do you keep making it a little bit better? And I think one unique opportunity that I have is I do have that experience with taking a piece of real estate and changing it around to fit a certain vision. Mm-hmm. And so we did that. The very first Mechanix lives in a mechanic shop. So it was literally a mechanic shop. And then I ran the project that turned it from, we bought the building. I ran the project that turned it from a mechanic shop into what it is now. Learned all these lessons about how we can make a better space. So I bought another place, incidentally, right in the middle of COVID. So that's a whole other fun little story of entrepreneurial risk and risk management. But we're going to build something even bigger there, not just in terms of gym space, but in terms of bringing other businesses in, creating certain outdoor spaces, creating certain experiences that are indoors and outdoors, bringing some new services in around the recovery and ice baths. And I kind of publicly put myself on the hook at mechanicsvision.com saying I was going to create 4 of these spaces by the end of 2022. And I gave myself I'm giving myself one more year for COVID. So I'm going to give myself till 2023. But I'd like us to have at least one more and ideally 2 more, like I committed that we were going to have by the end of 2023, each improved using what we've learned from the existing space. I get a little bored with just sort of cookie cutter kind of stuff. So it's not as interesting to me to go and create 100 places that look exactly the same. It's kind of interesting to me to craft and like a really interesting experience and use the real estate knowledge and the gym knowledge and, work together with the team to figure out how to keep making it better and better. So that's at least one thing that we're going to do. There's some stuff that I've been sort of playing around with that I'm not ready to share publicly yet. That'll probably combine the technology and the fitness business side. So I can't wait to share that with you when the time is right. But yeah, it's fun to pull in different skills and combine them together and create something new.
Yeah. And for starters, when the time is right, let me know. We'd love to have you back on to talk about. That's awesome. But you know what, you were just listening to you speak about creating an experience around a place. I just love it. I think it's beautiful. I think anybody listening to this, I don't care if you're an entrepreneur or not, that's passion, right? And anytime you've ended up in a restaurant or a coffee shop or an office or a gym or anywhere where you could tell that somebody had really thought it out. I was talking about this to my wife, Donna, in the context of, we have a friend, John, who's a chef, and you walk into the restaurant that he used to work for and it's like, wow, did they make this bench to go with that piece of art on the wall? Like, it's crazy when you really find, harmony in a business. And I think you're right. I think that's hard to do, right? You walk into a TGI Fridays and you can see they tried, right? You can see they all have the same knickknacks on the wall, and that's cool. And, shout out to TGI Fridays. That was one of my early jobs. Only job I ever got fired from.
That's a good story. I want to hear that one.
I got fired from TGI Fridays because I was talking too much to the clients. And I was like, this is fucking TGI Fridays. I thought that was the whole gig. And I was just not a very good server at the time. I think I would have been if I would have stuck with it. But, no regrets, baby. And the other thing is, I love the passion that you're bringing. And every time I've spoken to you, but particularly today, as I'm kind of like letting it live and breathe, as you're telling me, we both are evangelists for something that is really, really good for people and also kind of hard.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Speak about that. How does that factor into how you do things? Is that something you think about?
Yeah, I've thought about it a little bit. Sometimes I wish I felt really satisfied just doing boring, mundane stuff, because sometimes you can make a lot more money that way. You just sort of, you don't try to create something new every time. You just try to sort of cookie cutter roll stuff out. But what I've learned about myself over the years is that I just get tons of personal satisfaction from creating something. And, if you told me something wasn't possible, or you said, Justin, you can't do it. I almost want to go do it just to show you that it can be done, because I think I think I'm fairly good at like navigating, greenfield stuff and figuring out how to make stuff work. So I may be getting a little off track with answering your question here, but as far as like doing hard things or doing things that, being in a business which is more challenging, I think for me, I found reward, like personal satisfaction from it. And I think, nobody knows who, the most successful person was in like London 500 years ago, or like, who was the top, business person in, I don't know, Houston, 200 years ago. I guess Houston didn't exist back then, but
sure.
The point being that, there's a lot of things where I think we're sort of chasing like or some people can chase a certain notoriety within their peer group. But when you think about like the dent you're making over the long haul, like people they're not going to necessarily remember that or not. It's really about, did you make an impact that you can feel proud about in the sphere that you want to influence? And are you personally generating satisfaction from that? Because we only have so many years on this earth. We want to feel as fulfilled as we possibly can, I think, during that time. And I think the way to do it is to try to create something interesting that, that you may be uniquely positioned to do, or I may be uniquely positioned to do. Let me go do that thing and do it as well as I possibly can. And hopefully that's the way I can make a dent. And I feel really good when I do that. Whereas if I go and do something where I'm not uniquely highly qualified, or I'm not very stimulated intellectually with it, I don't know. I don't get the same satisfaction from it. So that just means I'm just kind of whittling away my time on earth, for what? If I don't have to, I don't want to.
Today's show is brought to you by HighLevel CRM. HighLevel is an all-in-one platform designed to help entrepreneurs grow their businesses without the need for multiple softwares or an IT team. Not only does their easy-to-use software allow you to track and manage your leads throughout each phase of the relationship, but it also allows you to build funnels, track stats, and more. Guys, I sat down and added up the cost of software I was able to replace with just one app, and it was over $1,000 per month. Because this is an all-in-one application, I also save a ton of headaches connecting apps and building automations, and the team at Go High Level does a great job of getting you started quickly and easily when you sign on. I cannot more highly recommend these guys. Right now, Spear and Clover listeners get a free 14-day trial of HighLevel CRM for themselves. Click the link in our show notes to support the show and get started on your free 14-day trial today. Today's show is brought to you by Scaling with Media. I mean, literally, like if it weren't for the folks at Scaling with Media, you would not be getting this. Scaling with Media is a truly revolutionary company for any entrepreneur who wants to reach a larger audience without taking on the years of experience necessary to master the required skills. These guys do it all. From helping you develop your creative plan to editing, sourcing content, copywriting, ads management, and way more. Whether you're looking to launch a YouTube channel or podcast, or you just want to scale your business out to more eyeballs, these guys are the absolute best one-stop shop. But that's not all. Right now, Spear and Clover listeners who sign up for their brand launch package will receive a free, that's right, free professional grade studio kit that I'm actually recording right now on. The studio kit includes a professional microphone, stand, lighting, and headphones, and is worth well over $500. Take action now by going to scalingwithmedia.com/spear and claim your free studio kit. Again, that's scalingwithmedia.com/spear, scalingwithmedia.com/spear. Now back to the show. Yeah, man, I love that. And unsurprisingly, we're very aligned on the things that you just spoke about. I would say a couple of points. Number one, I know you well enough now, Justin. I wouldn't tell you you couldn't do anything. I just would stop before I even got that out of my mouth. Number two, I love this idea because, you know, you think about people and we all have those friends, right? That are very successful in one way. Mm-hmm. You know, I'll never forget, this was maybe a year ago. I'll never forget, I was reading some article and it was just, people would know the picture too. It was Ben Affleck is standing outside smoking a cigarette and he just looked so defeated. And I turned to my wife and I go, Donna. She's like, yeah. I was like, I am objectively happier than Ben Affleck. and like, shout out, Ben, if you ever hear this, like, I love your work, man. But like, I just remember that moment of like, hey, man, I think what happens is we keep a certain score. And maybe it's in college you picked that score. Or maybe your parents set up what the score was going to be. You're going to be a surgeon. You're going to be a this and you're going to make a lot of money. Or you're going to buy a lot of real estate. Or you're going to have a lot of nice things. Or whatever it might be. And I think when you're sitting on a stack of points, it's easy to just go, well, this is what I do. I stack points. And you don't think about the other currencies of your life, like, you know, how happy you are, your blood pressure, your fucking body fat percentage or whatever. However, the question I meant was it's hard for the client. In other words, you could sell cupcakes, right? You can sell TV shows. You could sell, you know, massages. And to some extent, you know, there's some therapeutic, you know, nice feelings that you guys are doing there. I think the thing that's challenging for me is this virtuous thing that in one way or another, we've both spent a lot of our time in our lives helping give to people. It's also really hard to do, right? I mean, they have to come in and they have to, Robin Lalonde put it really well on the show. She said it's collective, elective suffering and like the power of that sweat bond. I thought that was beautiful the way she put that. And that's how I'll say it forever now. So have you thought about that? This thing where it's like, and even personally, you know, for me, when I'm meal prepping and eating healthy and working out regularly and doing mobility and stuff and doing breathing drills and stuff, when I'm doing those things, I feel better. I actually have more time. I save money. I look better. I have more energy. Just go on down the list. Every single element of my life is better. And yet, even I will be the first to tell you, like, go through waves and waxes and wanes. Have you given much thought to that aspect of what we do? How it in itself is difficult?
Are you talking about
like fitness, like doing hard work and jumping in an ice bath? That's fucking hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm the same way as you. I mean, I'm not 100% fired up to go and do all the things I know I should be doing 24/7. You know, I ebb and I flow, and I have given a lot of thought to it. And, you know, I think I'm drawn forward by the results that I want to create just in general. So to me, fitness is a tool. And it's a tool that's going to help get me where I want to get. And I happen to derive a lot of enjoyment out of it, which makes it easier for me to use that tool in my life. And so when the going gets hard, I just try to reflect back on that. That's what pushes me forward. It's not perfect. I mean, I think anyone that tries to tell you that, you know, they're 100% locked and loaded on it all the time, I think that's BS. You know, I think we all have our points where we just, you know, we're just low motivation. Our discipline takes a little whack, but as long as we can resituate ourselves, you know, that's what the strategy that's worked well for me. And, you know, as it relates to our athletes, our clients, I mean, it's like you've coached us to do, you're always trying to understand the why and trying to connect people's actions to the why. And so, we do our best to do that. And then I look at it as a challenge. Like if I can get really good at helping keep someone on the course, that means I've grown as a person because I can better communicate. I can communicate something positive to somebody else. So if I haven't been able to do that, and now I can hone my skills a little bit and help get someone through it a little bit better, then I've improved myself. I've improved them, and I've improved myself. So it's sort of like a win-win. And also, sometimes you want to bang your head against the wall and be like, "Come on, man, we got the playbook. I mean, it's only like 3 or 4 days a week. I mean, how hard is it? Just freaking do it, man."
Yeah.
So it's not like I don't have all the answers on it. I just have things that I are kind of my internal dialogue that help me along in my life and the sphere that's around it.
Yeah, I just remember years back, it was at that mastermind that I was at with Brian, and I was sitting in the room and we were just throwing the ball around, and there was a lot of people that today you would recognize. And they were like, what can we do to make obesity obsolete? That was kind of the, like, this room, this group of people, there was maybe 50 people in the room. And it was like, these are people that, were already on the path and were certainly far above me. I don't know how I managed to luck my way into that room, but I just will never forget that moment. And I'll never forget, talking about what can we do to help people live the lives that they would actually really enjoy. They would love their lives better, right? They would have all the benefits of the things we've talked about. And I think that we've made progress towards it, right? And you do that in community. You make it so that you want to go to the gym because it's a good experience and your coach knows you and you have friends that are there and they're expecting you and they're counting on you. We're doing this thing together. We do it with things like accountability. We teach that type of stuff in the business side of it, checking in on our clients that aren't showing up and providing them with, kind of a gamification pathways sometimes, whether that's earning points for some sort of a challenge or, certain things that you can do. But I think that if somebody can crack that, I think they truly crack that, I think it would be really, really great for the world. So you talk about your attention and what takes your attention outside of business.
Mm-hmm.
The Spear and Clover podcast is as much about what happens outside of business as it is what happens in business, right? It's all about pursuing those things that are passionate, that are, that draw your attention and that you get energy from. What is your attention drawn to outside of your businesses?
Yeah, good question. So let's say a couple things. So one, I actually get tremendous satisfaction out of business. So in and of itself, I get energized just working on business or talking about business with people. So that's one thing. I got attracted to the business because I love exercising. I love training. I love being fit. So a lot of things around that tend to get me. I'm passionate about them. So I'll go do workouts with friends at people's facilities, or we'll host little events, or we'll, like New Year's Day, I had a group of people and we were all cold plunging together, but we were also, just BSing around in the hot tub and having, New Year's stuff together. I like good food and good wine. So I've got a whole, before COVID, I made this list of like 20 restaurants that I definitely wanted to go, fly to and go try, restaurants and wine.
Wow.
I love surfing. I actually have a KPI of number of days surfing every year. And so I'm trying to always increase, that KPI for myself. Times, honestly, this jazzes me up right here. I'm talking with you. We have a lot of shared experiences. We have a lot of experiences that are different. We can, kind of banter back and forth. You're already expanding my mind on things. Hopefully I'm sharing a few things that are interesting.
Yeah.
This is super cool for me. Like I'm passionate about organizing things like this, whether it's like over a Zoom session or, getting a little group together for, dinner or book club or Burger Friday or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are a couple things that I'm pretty passionate about outside of the business.
Yeah, that's great. A couple of things. For starters, I'm glad you're enjoying yourself. This is what gives me energy, man. I was having these calls with you and with other folks like you for years and thinking, man, I bet you somebody would enjoy this, right?
Yeah.
Conversation shifts just a little bit when it's for public consumption, but not too much. How close are you to somewhere to surf? I'm not really familiar with Houston. I haven't been down there.
So in theory, I could drive an hour down the coast and surf
Wow.
Surfside or Galveston. I I got to go to like California, or I got to go to Costa Rica or Hawaii or something like that. That's the way I got my KPI set up. But you know what? Houston's so easy to kind of go in and out of that. Doing a little weekend trip to Costa Rica is a lot less expensive and a lot less headache than you might think, or popping down to Mexico or something like that. So it's not too bad. It's pretty accessible.
Yeah, I feel like Costa Rica is the spot, man. Hawaii is great. You know, there are great places. Thailand's great, but it's so far. Costa Rica is so great. You don't change time zones. It's like, for me, it's only a 5-hour flight. So for you, it's probably a 4-hour flight. And it's just beautiful. My sister was in the Peace Corps down there. And so I went down there for a few weeks, and we did the tourist stuff, but we also like hung out in her very small kind of, the town that she was serving down there, and got to meet some really interesting people. She was living with a family. So we got to, check that out, and we were cooking empanadas and just having a great time. What's your favorite place that you go in the world? Yeah. Just what's your favorite vacation place that you go?
Man, that's a tough one. Costa Rica is definitely on the list. Yeah. There's a cool little town down there called Nosara, and it's kind of a expat surf and yoga town. So you pretty much can go there and just hang out, or you can do yoga, or you can surf. That's sort of the whole menu of options. And it's on these bumpy roads that every time you're on, you're like, man, this is so exhausting to go on. But what's cool is those bumpy roads keep a lot of other people out. So you go there and you're just totally secluded with this just like perfect surf all around. So that's definitely a top spot. And then like 180 on that is, I'm a big wine guy. So I love going out to Napa Valley once a year and just tasting some wine out there. It's a different kind of peacefulness in nature, but it's also, you got people that devoted their life to like living on the land and creating like something beautiful out of it. And so you can go out there for a few days and just experience that and be out in nature and, nice California weather. It's also a pretty cool experience. So yeah, those are the two spots I like.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love those choices. I think you talk about, when I went to Napa, I've been twice, but once where I was there for real and did tours and learned about it. And we were there for a wedding for a good week. It's how I know that I love entrepreneurs. It's how I know that I love excellence is I have no real interest in wine. But when you're there, just like painting, if you go to the Louvre, right? Like when you're there and you see how the wine is made, it's beautiful, man. It's such a great thing. So I do feel like I can watch somebody do anything. I could watch a structural engineer working on a CAD document and have no real concept of exactly what they're doing, and probably be just as smitten by that. The other thing interesting kind of as a callback is you talk about managing risk, and I'll let you speak for yourself. But for me, managing risk, I only have a certain time domain that I can think of when I do entrepreneurial stuff typically. And I feel like wine, you're talking decades, right? I mean, like and the risk they're managing and just farming in general, but wine in particular, right? Like that type of risk management, that type of long-term planning. I have just so much respect for that. I don't know if that's something that you think you'd be interested in. I know that Maynard from Tool has gotten into like being a wine guy. And I think about that and I'm like, there's just no way. There's just no way I could do that. But I don't know.
Well, they say, what's the best way to become a millionaire in the wine business?
Fire.
start off as a multimillionaire.
Oh, okay. That's even better. There you go.
I think it's something you do. I mean, I personally have no desire to get in that business. I think it's a fun field to experience. Yeah. I think one other thing which is interesting about wine, and it's just, I just use it as a example of something that's, I think, more interesting to me. But I got into wine quite a few years ago. And one of the things I learned as I really dived into it is that wine was like, if you wanted it to be, you can just drink it and not even worry about it and go, buy a bottle at Kroger or, whatever the local grocery store is. And that's cool. But if you want to like really geek out on it, wine actually becomes this like lens that you can look at the entire world through, because it's growing in different ways in different places over millennium. And they've done it in different ways for different reasons. And, and so you literally can like study world history through wine if you want. But it doesn't have to be wine. It could be anything. It could be like the history of water bottles. Like you're drinking a water bottle right now. What did the water bottle look like, 2,000 years ago? If you want to geek out on water bottles, you could just go like collect water bottles and then like really go and study it. And all of a sudden you're on like Roman history and Greek history and maritime history and like technology and whatever. So I think, I think some people are probably going to resonate with the fact that I love wine, and some people are going to be like, what a loser, man. Like, why do you want to keep out on wine? And I think, to me, the more interesting point is like, whatever your hobby is, if it's something that has richness to it, like you can literally study the world, and like it becomes this like great magnet for, really cool relationships of other people that want to study the world through it. So yeah, wine's just been an area that's been like super rewarding for me because I like the way it tastes, but also because I have learned so much about, history and society and culture through it. And it could be anything. It could literally be anything that could be your magnet to do it. But it's just sort of, I guess you get back out of it what you decide you want to put into it. So it's a fun hobby for me.
Yeah. I wonder, even just listening to you talk right there, like I can't imagine you, and I'm the same way, but can't imagine you not having a richness of appreciation and depth in whatever it is. Because everything you've talked about today has had that. I guarantee you, if I asked you about surfing, if I asked you about real estate, if I asked you about technology, you could give me a similar thing to that. And I think that's so much about the lens than it is about what it's viewing, right? I think that says a lot about you. So that's props to you, man. And I definitely identify with that, but I respect it a ton. Before, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about a little more in technical of, hot sauna, cold plunge, breathing, particularly sauna and cold plunge. What are the benefits for those? If I'm listening to this and I'm like, I went to a Zumba class 6 months ago. I haven't really, COVID's over, so I'm really buckled down. Why would I want to regularly experience a sauna? Why would I regularly want to do a cold plunge?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a bunch of cool reasons. Whenever somebody is trying it out for the first time, I always tell them that there's a couple things that are amazing. I said, first of all, there's not too many ways that are going to make you feel better mentally and physically in a natural capacity, right? Like no drugs, no nothing, just like go and do something natural. There's not too many things that are going to make you feel better mentally and physically. So it's like this 1 hour. We do contrast therapy where at Mechanix, we do contrast therapy where you're in the ice, then you're in the sauna, then you're in the ice, then you're in the sauna. And that whole experience takes about an hour. So, I mean, you could do it in way less, but that's where the hour comes from. That 1 hour experience is just so relaxing. So that's the first thing. If you've never done ice before, it's just this great tool for practicing your breath work. And, we talked about breath work earlier and all the benefits of it. And one of the things that's really powerful for is just regulating your mental state, either just like relaxing you or getting you like super amped up, for battle or competition or public speaking or whatever it is. And so the ice bath becomes this like great tool for learning how to use your breath to just calm your body and your mind. It really transcends it. But, there's a lot of benefits. People will do ice bath regularly as an antidepressant. It just causes your brain to dump all those feel-good chemicals. So you end up coming out feeling amazing. A lot of good research on regular cold exposure for boosting immune system. A lot of good research on blood sugar stabilization, which you and I know is like a really big piece of diet. So it's not just calories, right? It's also like blood sugar regulation. Ice bath's really good for that. Good for boosting good fat, which is the brown fat, which metabolizes. So it's going to help boost your metabolism. The sauna has got amazing benefits around just overall cardiovascular health. Regular sauna usage is tied to the scientists say decreased overall mortality from these different causes. But basically, you got less of a chance of dying from everything from diabetes to stroke to heart attack to quite a few other things just through regularly using the sauna. And I'll just throw one other thing out there. One other thing, and I didn't really think about this until we started doing contrast therapy mechanics, but the way we do it, you get in the ice bath for, anywhere from 30 seconds to 3 minutes. And then you're in the sauna for like 10 to 15 minutes. So you got like one person in the ice bath, and then you got probably 10 people in the sauna. So out of your hour, you basically are like 80% 10 people in the sauna.
Yeah.
So you're hanging out with 10 people that are all feeling super relaxed. They're not looking at their phones because their phones are going to blow up in there. There's no music. There's no TV. There's no nothing. It's just 10 people that are crazy enough to get in the ice and the heat. So they're guys like me and you, they're gals like me and you, that are just want to like talk about cool stuff, whatever it is. It could be like your podcast. It could be like a cool book. It could be like a great workout. And I mean, I think we all like really saw during COVID in particular that the ability to have time together with people that we really appreciate is huge. Like that being in the same physical space together. And so, of course, you can go do that anywhere. You can go do it at the bar. You can go do it, at a restaurant or whatever. But there's something special about doing it in a really relaxed environment that I think is huge. And so I'd be remiss not to throw that benefit out there as well, because our community gets it.
Yeah, you cut out at the very end there, but I agree. People, there's just, at our gym, we always had a no headphone policy. And I don't think we would have ever needed it really, but there's just something that if you haven't done it, whether it's CrossFit or yoga or jujitsu or any of those community gyms that really have a community around them that, what did I say it was? Combined elective or collective elective suffering was Robin's way to put it. When you do that, there's a bond that's formed. It's ancient, man. It's from hunting and it's from war and it's from building a house together or raising a barn or, whatever, working with cattle, whatever it may be. That's what we're getting now in the gym. So if you have an office job, and you're going into the gym and sitting on a treadmill or doing whatever it is you're doing, you owe it to yourself to at least give yourself that opportunity because it enriches your life in a way that I just don't think we have a lot of opportunity to do. It's if you, maybe you can do it through your children and through, small groups and maybe there's book clubs and I'm not disparaging that in any way. But man, within 10 miles of anybody listening to this, probably, but within your town and area, there is a gym and there's somebody just as passionate as myself or Justin that can really help you. And they're going to ask you to come to barbecues and you're going to be going to weddings of people who met at that place. And it's just such an enriching experience kind of across the board. And the fitness is, whether it's primary or secondary, it's incidental, man. It comes with it. A great resource for all the stuff Justin's talking about, by the way, is Dr. Rhonda Patrick has done a ton of really cool research and has been kind of a throughput of other people's research towards sauna and ice bath. And so, a lot of that stuff that I've heard is from that source. So that has been great. But this isn't just anecdotal. This is like, they've tested it, empirically, and both of those things are really, really beneficial for you. So there are two questions, Justin, that I ask every guest that comes on. The first question is, if I gave you access to unlimited capital, how would you profitably grow your current business?
That's a good question. So we have an opportunity to invest in our current location more in sales. So we've actually, thanks to you for a lot of the coaching that you've given us, we've got that playbook. And so just putting more dollars behind sales and marketing will grow both of our locations. Unlimited capital, I think, lets us go ahead and start working on the next few locations immediately. Mm-hmm. And I've got a lot of confidence around getting great ROI from that because we've already shown that in a tiny little space with really crappy parking and some other deficiencies, like we can build a really profitable gym. And so I know that we can, crush it even more with a little better suited space. So I think those are probably the two things that we would do. We'd invested in personnel specifically around sales and marketing, and we'd invested in additional locations.
Love it. I think that's the great answer. Have you given much thought as this thing scales for you? Have you given much thought? Is it you as the charismatic central figure for the entire company, or do you plan on kind of recreating yourself through general management? Have you given much thought to that? Because I think you're a special guy, and I think that's obvious to anybody that's been listening this long. How do you reproduce that? Is that what's the plan?
Well, I appreciate all your kind words. I mean, I'm gonna have to play this back for personal affirmation. You give me some of the next compliments. What I'm really interested in doing is having opportunities for top tier managers and really talent across mechanics to crush it financially, professionally, satisfaction wise. Mm-hmm. I think it's inevitable that people in the gym love to interact with the person who started it or the owner. But I don't teach any classes at the gym. I wouldn't necessarily say I've kind of put myself out as the figure or personality for it. I've always tried to build the brand around what we offer and a team that's going to offer it and not around me. Mm-hmm. And that might partly be just because I'm not a big like be on center stage kind of person. So to answer your question, it'll definitely, as we grow, it'll definitely be around having the right people. Yeah. And in fact, anyone listening, if you're interested in being part of what we're doing, I'm always looking to bring great people onto the team. So whether it's at a manager level, trainer level, or sales, administrative, if you actually go check out Mechanix Vision and any of it resonates with you, just let me know. Like, we are always hiring for people that are aligned with our vision and have good talent.
Love it. Yeah, definitely hit them up. Also, The world seems to be moving to Texas these days, so I'm sure you'll be getting an influx of good talent heading your way. So the second question that I ask everybody is if you had to put it all away and you had to stop the businesses that you have done or are doing, is there a different business? If you had to start a business tomorrow, what would that different business be?
I'm really fascinated about. So first of all, I mean, if you took it all away and I was starting over, I probably would still be attracted to the businesses that I'm doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if you say, look, you can't do those, you got to do something different. I'm really fascinated about the intersection between medical health and fitness. I think ideally, we're able to coach our members to live lives that never require any medical help whatsoever. But the reality is, stuff happens and you got to bring that medical realm in at certain points. And I think there's some interesting stuff happening in that intersection because you have this interesting kind of distrust between the two spaces. And really, they both have their place. And like, if you're sick, you don't want your doctor saying, don't work out. You're hearing all this stuff right now as we record this, in mid-January 2022. I literally read a Wall Street Journal article that was like, hey, if you think you have COVID, like, stop working out. It's like, what? Where's the message that says, like, hey, get outside and like walk for a little bit, like dial your exercise back, but like at least try to have some habit in there. So there's kind of this distrust between the two segments. And I think there's an opportunity to reposition things a little bit and not only make lives better, but I think there's a lot of value to be captured there as well. So I'd probably do something in that space and maybe even giving it some thought. So I may have more to share on at some point.
That's exciting, man. And it's funny because I don't know if I'll articulate this quite right, but I've been giving a lot of thought to that. Like, there are these pockets or fiefdoms in the world that up until the internet were able to just stand on their own, right? You have medical school, and there's some stat where it's like, in medical school, the average, eventual doctor has spent 8 total hours talking about like performance, or 8 total hours talking about like how to eat for performance and things like that. And traditionally, I think we got away with these kind of entrenched fiefdoms where people weren't talking to each other. And now you see these bleed overs where it's like, oh, well, you say this, but the expert over here says something totally different. And I think the revolution that we're heading for, if we're fucking super lucky, is that you're going to start to see the Chris Cressers of the world and the Justin Singers of the world and, the Joe Rogans of the world. I try not to mention him too much because, obviously I'm doing my own thing over here, but he's the best that's ever done it, right? And he's bringing together ideas from different people in different industries. And you start to go like, even an example from that is even like geology and archaeology connecting and finding out that the Sphinx may have been many, many years older than we originally thought. I just think that the revolution we're heading towards, and I think it's been caused, the very long tail of it started with the internet, but it's like, life's an open book test now. We can't pretend like you and your thing are the end all be all of everything, right? And so the idea of combining fitness and health, which traditionally, you're right, has been a little contentious of a relationship, that's got to go away. And it's not even like a choice. It's one of those things where, I can't look you in the face if you're going to stand there and defend an old position that has been just proven to not be the case, right? I can't do it. If you're disingenuous, if we both know you're full of shit, I'm not going to pretend like you're not. So that's fascinating. I can't wait to see that come from you. And certainly, anybody that's listening can hear that you're one of the guys that can do it, man. So we'd love to see where that goes for you. And there's certainly plenty of meat on that bone, buddy. That would be really amazing. Well, Justin, as we wrap up, is there anything else on your mind? Anything else you want to talk about before we start to wrap it up?
Yeah, I might share 2 things. I was kind of reflecting before this talk, and one thing that I don't know if people are going to be listening that are maybe thinking about doing something with business or thinking about taking a step, but I've had people approach me about that, and they're always talking about all the things that might go wrong if they take that step. And I was just thinking about some of my experiences. And like the fact that I took the step when I took it actually ended up creating opportunities that were like beyond my wildest dreams, but I had no visibility into it until I took that step. So I would just summarize all that and say, instead of worrying about like the bad stuff that could happen, think about all the good stuff that you're not even aware of, that can happen when you go and take that step.
Yeah. That's a really good piece of advice for sure.
The other thing I would share is, if anything that I've talked about piques a listener's interest, if you are interested in calisthenics training, If you're interested in pool training, if you're interested in structuring a program, or maybe even having a program to augment what you're already doing so that you can build in breath work and recovery and mobility, we actually offer that all online. We have some prepackaged programs as well that we can share. And then lastly, if anyone wants to kind of go through that XPT, Laird Hamilton experience where you're jumping in the pool and training underwater with weights and doing saunas and ice baths and breath work, we're actually going to have a couple pretty high-end experiences held here in Houston, Texas. So just reach out to me about that, and I can let you know when the next one's coming up.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think to your first point, the people thinking about what could go wrong, I think truly it's one of those things. And the longer I've been in business, the more I've realized I don't care if there's no money in the bank account. I don't care if the rent's due. I don't care if the roof is leaking. If you just keep showing up, Alex Hormozi always says, business is a game that you only lose by quitting, right? Yep. If you just keep showing up, if you just keep, doing the best you can, and it's pretty amazing how much you can withhold, or you can withstand rather. I've definitely lived that. I've watched that, and then the other side of it is I've had the benefit of being able to help folks like you, and not specifically you, but have struggle and see the very clear steps that they took to not have struggle, and see how rewarding that is and how rich of an experience that is, because, these are people who know what it's like to have their back against the wall. And I would say that if you're not ready to have your back against the wall, don't go into business, but don't be afraid to put your back against the wall, because, you can do it. And there are certainly folks out there that can help you to do it. Justin, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm going to hold you to it. We're going to have you back on whenever you have something new. I'd love to have you back. I think you're a super interesting guy. Also, we're going to be starting to have topics for folks that have already been on the show. I'd love to have you back on, and we'll probably do 2-on-1s where we'll discuss certain topics, and would love to invite you back for one of those.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you inviting me on, and really enjoyed this conversation.
Awesome, Justin. Thanks a lot. All right, everybody, have a great day. Thank you guys so much for watching or listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to show us some love by liking, rating, and subscribing so we can keep making more and better content. If you'd like to support the show and get a great additional content like exclusive shows and even live group masterminds, please head over to patreon.com/Spear and Clover to become a member of the tribe. If you're interested in learning more about how we help entrepreneurs, visit spearandclover.com or message us on any of our platforms. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.